So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2020 ETH Game Programming Laboratory final presentations. We are live, so a big hello to everyone out there watching. It's going to be a really fantastic show. You can please comment on the YouTube stream. We're monitoring the comments, and we'll try to respond to everything that you say. So let's also give a big hello to the real heroes tonight, all of the students from this year's class. So big wave. So hi, very exciting. I see some wave, good, super. So this course and this event tonight is about games. And I want to switch to my presentation and show a game character that probably most of you recognize. Here's a hint in case you're not familiar. This is Pac-Man. And 4 days ago, Pac-Man had his 40th birthday party. And it actually took 9 people working 17 months to create this video game. What's amazing is that if you take that team size, cut it in half, and shrink the development time from 17 months down to 3.5, that's basically what the students in our course have done. They've gone from a completely blank slate to a completely working, finished game in that short amount of time, which is really an amazing feat. So what is this course about? The ETH Game Programming Laboratory is a course. It's part of the computer science program at ETH Zurich, which is one of the world's top technical universities located in Zurich, Switzerland. It's a capstone course, which means that it's a course that comes at the end of the studies and builds on the core computer science curriculum and visual computing specialization courses. And the idea is that students in this course utilize and apply everything that they've learned throughout the program to this common group task of creating a game. They work in small teams, typically 4 or 5 students, to build a novel game from scratch. Now, we designed the course with many pedagogical concepts in mind to really help it be a core part of learning. And we published a research article about the course design that you can check out if you'd like to learn more about that. The overall structure of the course is divided into these 3 phases: design, development, and refinement. In the design phase, the students work on all of the concept design. So they go from kind of basically nothing to having an idea, creating sketches like you see now, and building everything kind of in their mind on paper and through testing of what they want their game to be. So this sketch, in one of our earliest iterations of the course, the students then developed this as their final game level based on that sketch. Now, in this portion, they also create a physical prototype. By using paper and cardboard and scissors, the students create a playable version of their game. This is another example. This was a racing game on the Great Wall of China. Here you see the physical playable prototype, and this is an example of the digital game that was the final result of the course. Now, the middle half of the course is development. And this is really where all of those ideas and designs are transformed into a working digital game. So all of the programming, the coding, the asset design, writing shaders, all of these aspects happen in the development phase. Here's an example of a racing game in ancient Greek waters. This is a part of their design document and physical prototype. And here's a screenshot from the final version, again in an earlier iteration of the course. Now the last phase is refinement. And here the students take their games that are almost finished at an alpha release phase and hand them to other people to play. And they collect feedback and really try to understand how can they improve their game, make it more fun, and really make sure that it lives up to their initial expectations. The teams use the information from the refinement stage to then improve the game in preparation for the final presentation, which is what we're seeing right now. And often I think the teams are happy that they survive because they put so much work and time into this. So it's a very special and fun moment to share right now. So one special aspect of the course is that we always have a game theme. And here the idea is that by actually imposing some limitation in terms of a theme helps increase creativity. Giving some boundaries really helps improve creativity. And that's why the theme is a critical part of the course. This year's theme is very special, is the circus. So every game that you'll see today in some way answers to this idea. Somehow the design speaks to that idea of the circus. Now, next we're gonna jump right into the presentations. We have 5 teams, and they've made five fantastic games, and we're gonna let them present one by one. Everything you're seeing is live, so there will be a live presentation from them, and also a live gameplay session for each team. So with that, let's jump right in, and let's see the teaser trailer for Team 1, Circus Maximus. Super, so that's super great trailer. So take it away, Team 1, with your presentation.
Thank you and welcome. We are very excited to kick off this year's Game Lab with the first student presentations. So our game takes the player back to the time of the Romans, and it is a competitive 2-player real-time strategy game. So into this presentation, I will tell you about the journey, how we went to the final product. And it really started with these 2 main ideas of wanting to make a game where there's spectacular fights in front of the crowd, where the cheering is the fuel of the fight. And on the other side, a more real-time strategy component where we want to have a huge number of individual fighters that you can easily control and have an in-depth strategic match. So from there, we formalized our goal that we want this fast-paced 2-player strategy game that lives in this immersive atmosphere of the Circus Maximus with the crowd shouting. And on the other side, having this control of a lot of units. So you're the commander of a big army, and which should then allow you to pursue a lot of different strategies. And even more, it's the first time we do such a game. So we really wanted to have this full experience from starting it from blank to go the full mile to this presentation today. So how do we get there from this empty canvas? How we approached this? It was that we started with this clear goal and an agreement in the team of what we want to achieve. Then we specialized the team members. We assigned roles, who's responsible for which part of the game. So we know that the initiative for this part of the game needs to come from this person. And also Corona, of course, played a role. So we had these weekly meetings over Discord to discuss our progresses. And these clear tasks and responsibilities enabled us to effectively work on our own for this greater big project. And one thing we identified very early that would be crucial for our game are these feedback channels. So we want to create a complex game where a lot of things are happening. So we need to tell the player at all times what is happening for animation, audio feedback, and also having a proper user interface that supports that. So as we are all computer scientists, we excel in writing code, but not really in doing art. So we, from the start, had this in mind that we need to maybe leave our snail house to go more into the animation part to actually perceive that image that we wanted to create. Still, we started from the scratch by building the software architecture because we had nothing. So we knew we want to have a big game. So we started with really focusing on having a proper software architecture, things like input handling, having extensive user interface systems, sprite rendering. This really enabled us to start working on this idea. And therefore, the next thing we did was implementing the core mechanic, because in the end, in our game, you control groups of fighters. So it's all about group movement, group formation, group attacking. And this is really the first thing. In the first weeks, we already spent all our resources making this core mechanic work and polishing it. And to that also belongs this cheering system, because we are in an arena, so the crowd shouts at you, and we invented this system of rewarding the player for certain action and punishing him for others. From there on, we directly created the content to, in the end, have a lot of strategy options. We needed to have a lot of different units, a lot of different mechanics. So we used Blender for that to create these 3D assets. And instead of importing the 3D assets into the game, we did this trick of fake 3D by just taking a bunch of pictures of our animation and just put the pictures in our game, which made it easier to develop a simpler system of just image rendering instead of having a 3D scene. So let's go to what do we actually offer in the game. And we have 8 exciting units. And in the development of the units, of the fighters, it was really important for us to give each own character, unique design, unique abilities. And we spent a lot of time telling these stories and making that work. And also, on top of that, we are in a circus, in an arena, so we have animals, a lion and a rhinoceros. And they really, they work in a kind of special way and are like a way to where you have show fights in front of the crowd, but you need to play the game to really get into that. So after having all these mechanics and content set up, we had still this empty canvas of an arena that now was filled with some groups you can move around. So now we had to leave this thinking of computer scientists and go to game developers and think about, okay, how can we make this map engaging? Can we add obstacles, other events? And over this course of iterations, we came up with the final map where you not only have to fight the other player, but also please the crowd, animate the crowd, be aware of animals coming from trapdoors, having neutral enemies to fight, to earn some cheering points. You can upgrade your units, all these things. And last, well, of course, these things introduce some more problems. For example, now with obstacles, we need pathfinding. We have now obstacles, we have this kind of problem where one image overlaps strange another image. So we had to make a whole depth rendering implementation. Last but not least, sound. To create this immersive atmosphere, we needed to have sound. That's really a hard part because we don't really have the means to create this ourselves. So we had to rely on free sources in the internet. And that was a big challenge to find the samples that give this coherent picture in the end. And also we were fortunate enough to get a theme song that you heard in the trailer from a friend. And I want to take this opportunity to say a big thank you because that added a lot. And in the end, we did a real-time strategy game on an Xbox, which is really like a hard, well, unusual task. So the controls were also a big part. What we've learned about the course is that our game works and it has a lot of depth and you can follow it, but it's really hard to master, even more for people that are not really familiar with this topic. So we tried to ask the question, can we make it easy to learn? And we put the last part of the whole development was really focusing on how can we make our game accessible to people that are not already pros. So we did this by having an encyclopedia where you can read about the gladiator types and their numbers, and also having a tutorial that in 13 small steps introduce you to the basic controls. And we mainly learned that it's really important to think early about how to teach your game if you want to have a game of this complexity. But in total, we are happy about our product. We exceeded the high target we set ourselves and learned a lot in the process. And most importantly, we had fun. Well, we wish you too. And now I will stop my presentation and we will go over to the live demo of our game. So our teaching assistants will take over and play our game for us. So let's go there. So what we will start is you will now see the game at the very start, where it normally starts with where each player assembles his starting crew, and this is done in turns to already engage in strategy from the start. So the first player now chooses some specialists to fight animals, which will be very important for the initial part of the fight. While the blue player now focuses on having some strong fighters that are actually specialized in cheering the crowd. So you see already some kind of tactics from both players. One wants to go more about fighting animals, while the other one wants to showcase cool poses to win the crowd. And as you see, the blue player started to have these fighters, these horses to fight. What the red player reacts to that by having some countermoves to it. Well, without further ado, let's see how this plays out. At the yellow spot, you see the crowd demanding the people to cheer for them. So that's what our small bestiaria is doing there, while the second player already tries to punish him for doing that. And as the second player engages it, the crowd on this side is really engaged in the red player, so he's helping him by throwing stone at it. Well, that was a bad maneuver, I guess, to attack them there at the corner with the horses. What you see now in the middle is another player cleaning the middle. He beat the initial lines to cheer the crowd and get rewards for having this appointment. So let's see around. Right now we are still in the early mid game. Players trying to find a way about how to engage the enemy, having some units fighting the animals in front of the crowd while having this fierce fight in the middle. Yeah. So what we're seeing here now is that both players switch to a different strategy, getting some archer units, and it seems that the blue player just at the right moment could recruit a new team, which is kind of specialized into doing this thing, yeah. So I will now turn back my commentary and let's enjoy a little bit their tactics. What's noteworthy to see here is that we gave this hard task to our TAs to play our game that we of course specialized into and spent a lot of time in. And as you saw, as it turns out, our game takes a lot of practice, and it's really good job here seeing how our teaching system set this into motion and managed to have this engaging play.
Well, thank you so much. Good job, teaching assistants. I think we're going to move on. Team 1, great job. Circus Maximus. Let's move on and play the trailer for Team 2, the Media Circus. Okay, so go ahead, team 2.
Okay, hello everyone. This is team 2. We are a relatively small group with only 2 people, Anders Hansen and me, Xiaoyu Sun. I'm introducing our game called the Media Circus. So actually, this is not our original idea. Yeah, so that's due to some major changes of our team during the first few weeks of the semester. We began with, as usual, 4 members. We were given an Xbox for testing our game. And then we had the virus breaking out. So everyone was going home. So do 2 group members of us. One of them went back home to Germany, the other to France. And our group member in France was the one who actually came up with the original idea. So we decided that he should be the one testing the game and see if we have achieved what was expected. But unfortunately, both of these 2 group members realized later that they didn't have enough time for this course, so they quit it. And the 2 of us that was left had a hard time, but we eventually still decided to stay in this course, but with a new idea, which is the current one, the Media Circus. So this idea actually came from an explanation of the word circus in the Oxford Dictionary. As you can see, we call it a media circus when there's some event attracting the attention of the public, especially the media. And this is where we had the name of our game. So we eventually came up with a situation where we let the player run a news company. As you can see, this is our physical prototype. We show the player a map divided into multiple regions, and there will be random events popping up in these regions, and the player can choose to send his journalist to the corresponding regions and investigate these events, decide on whether he wants to have a report on this. So based on that, we draw a very simple map of only 7 regions. And for each of these regions, we implemented a model of how public opinion is formed. So the assumption was that the population in each region can be divided into several subgroups. And each of these subgroups will have its own preference for a certain idea. So let's say, for example, the rich subgroup could have a higher preference for capitalism and so on. There will be 2 types of interactions between these groups. The first type is the direct interactions, and the second type is through mass media. So each subgroup will have some kind of influence on the mass media, which in turn will shape the opinion of all these groups. And this is also where the player can intervene, because the player plays part of as part of the mass media. While we were implementing this, we have encountered multiple problems and bugs, the most notable one being the not a number bug. And this happens when you have a 0 divided by 0 in your program. It returns you the special value of not a number. The problem with this is that we have many calculations involving several variables in the program. And if one of the variable is not a number and you do any arithmetic calculation with it, it will return you not a number again. And this means the not a number will kind of spread in the program, just like our dear virus. And finally, it ruins the whole thing. So we were finally able to find a solution by realizing that this was caused by overflow of the floating point number type. So we had an exponentiation that was too large for it to handle. So what we did is we adjusted the value of the power so that it remains in the proper range, and the bug was fixed. And now Anders will show you the demo.
Yes, thank you very much, Shari. So yes, now I can see the game starting screen, and I hope you can too. So let's go ahead and start the game right away. So if I direct your attention up to the top left corner, we have some stats, player stats. So the reputation, you can see it in the middle. It represents what the public opinion is about you. Do they like you or do they not? Below that, you have the fame, which is currently 0 because you haven't reported anything. And it represents how many people know about you. And of course, you have your money, which will increase depending on your reputation and your fame. More people know you, more money earned. And the score is just how much money you earned over time. So as you can see on the regions, they have slightly different colors. It's a gradient that you can see on the bottom of the screen, which is yellow for patriotism and red for internationalism. So the regions right now are pretty orange, so a lot of regions don't really have a preference for either of these ideas. And if we press right to switch the view, we have a similar one for environmentalism and productivism, and right again for the capitalism and socialism. Yes, there is. And these values are at random on the start of the game. So if we go ahead and select an event, we get the choice to send one of our 2 journalists to this event. Right now, it is the same price to send these because they are from the same starting position. And it will be increased if the distance is larger. And when you send your journalist to this event, you get the title, What's Happening Here? So in this case, market economy in central Banlu is booming. Central Banlu is the region it's happening. So I would interpret this as it's good for capitalism, the idea of capitalism. So if we press right again, twice, so yes, when the red blue appears, so you can see that a lot of regions somewhat agree with the idea of capitalism. So they would agree with this event. We have 3 options: report truthfully, dramatically, and no report. Truthfully, you aim to report the event as truthfully as possible. So in this, the aim of this is to increase your reputation as much as possible, but it costs you a bit of fame earnings. While the report dramatically, it's more exaggerated and clickbaity, some would say. So you would earn more fame about this, but you don't earn as much reputation, and no report, you just don't report at all, so it has no effect. So since we don't have any fame right now, let's go ahead and report dramatically. And you can see our fame increases, but our reputation decreases somewhat. And if you keep an eye on this fame, you also see it lowers over time, because if you don't report on stuff, people will forget about you. And you also see that you started earning money and score. So let's go ahead and select another event and send a journalist. Doesn't matter which one. And now we have another event. Workers in Oswatu are striking because of low payment. So in this case, it would be the opposite, I think. Yes, this would be against the idea of capitalism. So if we check the region map for, yes, exactly. So we can see the region of Wasu is a bit indifferent on this opinion. So let's try reporting truthfully this time. So if we compare it to the previous one, we earned reputation and also fame, even though we earned less fame than before. And this is the general idea how to play this game. You see the titles, you think about what ideas it will affect, and then you choose on how to report on them based on what the public already think about. So there's sometimes cases where you report truthfully, but still lose reputation because the public doesn't agree with it. That concludes our demo right now, and thank you so much for listening.
So thank you so much. Appreciate that. Interesting game, for sure. So let's move on to team number 3, Circus Break, and take a look at their trailer.
Uh-oh.
So great. So please go ahead with your presentation.
Well, hello. Hi, Mom. I'm on YouTube now. This is Team 3 with Circus Break, and I'd like to take a couple of minutes to just walk you through our development process and share some of the lessons we learned along the way. So when we first heard the theme of this year's Game Lab, Circus, we were a little bit stumped. Didn't really know what you could do with that. But then Daniel, one of our team members, showed us this really cool video of a person cycling through city traffic, which I'm going to show you here. And it really kind of inspired us that we wanted to make like a kind of racing style game through this kind of dense city traffic where you really have to, balance and kind of get this kind of flowy feeling. And so that meeting was when our idea was born, that we would have our 4 unlikely heroes, Mandy the monkey, Boris the bear, Leonardo the lion, and Eleanor the elephant, escape from their abusive circus against all odds and try and get to the airport to escape their natural habitats once more. So this kind of sets the scene. We wanted to have a fast-paced game. We wanted to have 4-player local co-op. And we wanted to enforce interaction and cooperation between the players by having this cash item, this cash package that they stole from the circus, that they would have to move back and forth between the players so that the heat, like GTA stars, doesn't get too high and the player doesn't get wiped out, losing the cash, and through that, the game. Adding on top of that, making this more difficult, should be the fact that they ride on unicycles, and these should be quite hard to control. So the physical prototype game phase was something that me personally, I was quite skeptical with first, but it ended up being quite fun. We had this on the right, you can see this kind of balancing board action where we would simulate riding the unicycle by having to balance a set amount of time and dodging balls thrown at you to simulate being shot by like circus assassins. And it also, like, even though it's an action game and the prototype was turn-based, we really learned a quite valuable lesson, and that was that it was extremely hard to survive. Like, and that ended up materializing in the final game as well. That if you crash really quickly, and so we had to really give a lot more leeway to the players than we initially expected in terms of how many times you're allowed to fall over and what happens if you lose your health. So off we went to actually implementing the game. The initial progress was really fast. We set up procedural city generation. We built this kind of simple unicycle movement model. We created assets for the buildings, building fronts and the characters. But the world was still a bit empty and the streets were sad and carless, and the unicycle wasn't really hard to drive. So we knew in the end we're gonna have to use some sort of physics engine. We ended up using a free engine and tried our hand at implementing traffic with actual cars that you could collide with, which would give for a lot of good gameplay, and also, of course, making it challenging to ride the unicycle. And what could be more challenging, really, we thought, than actually having it physically accurate? As it turned out, it was extremely hard, and we actually needed to tone it down with the realism. Fun thing with physics, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It makes a bunch of fun things happen for free, but it also makes things happen that you didn't really intend for, and that you can spend quite a bit of time finding out why they do that. So we had characters launching into space, and what you just saw. But in the end, we came out with a quite interesting model. We had a fully functional traffic simulation where the drivers react to the players. We had an editor to control the city layout. We added multiple enemy types, really going, and the deadline was nearing. So we loaded the game up on the Xbox, and then this piece of footage came up. So, oh no, this is not playable on the Xbox. And so this is another lesson, I would say, that we took away from this lab, is that you often tasks that you didn't anticipate taking up any time at all, like optimizing your games for the target platform, really took a big chunk out of our resources. But we scrambled in the end, applied a bit of polish, and now we are proud to present you a live demo and the final product of our work over the last 14 weeks or so. So I'm gonna give the stage to our TAs, and I'm gonna try and provide a bit of commentary. This game is extremely chaotic, you have been warned. I'm gonna try my best to kind of see. Okay, so here we're on the character screen. We can see we have the different characters that you can choose. So our demonstrators are gonna use this is the airport you're trying to get to. You can actually reach this airport if you're good. So let's see how much practice our TAs have been putting in. So you can see right now on the left, Leonardo is carrying the cash package. This means that he will gain more heat at the top left. His percentage goes up way faster. We see that both of them are having quite a bit of trouble staying upright on the unicycle. So if you pop down, you stand right back up until your health is down, which forces a respawn. So right now you see the players have 20 seconds to regain, to find their cash package again, or otherwise it will be lost. Also, depending on the heat level, we see these sewer clowns, these clown operators with their night vision goggles pop out from the covers, and ooh, that's unfortunate. And they will try and hunt you down with their blow darts, and they will get more and more aggressive and intense with their fire rate and whatnot as time progresses. We also saw on the right this kind of ramming vehicle that just took out Eleanor on the right. So things get quite nasty if you don't manage to pass off the heat quickly in this game. So right now they're making their way down the street, sailing pretty smoothly as far as I can tell through this choppy Zoom stream, but luckily on YouTube you should have a better experience. And now we see the heat starts going up. So they really should pass the cash at this point, otherwise they're going to be in trouble here. Oh, that's not going to happen though with both characters dead. Let's see if they can regain the packages quite a bit away, so they got quite far towards the airport. So now it's going to be quite a scramble to get the cash back. Let's see, can they do it?
So thanks very much. Actually, what you don't know is the two, Violin and Fraser, that are playing right now are laughing so much because the game is really a lot of fun. It's extremely hard, but it just makes you want to play more. So thanks so much, Team 3. I think we're going to move on now and take a look at the teaser trailer for Team 4, Silly Gilly. Super. So go ahead, please start your presentation.
Hello and welcome to the world of silly Gilly, where the circus has embarked on a grand voyage to bring happiness to the arid desert lands. So, our team is composed of 5 people. Myself, I'm Sean. I will be holding the presentation today. We have Mikael, who was our lead producer and organizer. We have Elias, who was our main programming wizard and software architect. Felix was in charge of all the beautiful graphics you will be seeing, and Silvia was our sound designer. She did all the sound effects and soundtrack for our game. What is Silly Gilly? So we wanted to make a game that would be fast-paced and cooperative. After a lot of brainstorming, we came up with the concept of a circus convoy that moves from one town to the next and needs to manage its resources on the train as it moves in order to reach the next town and be able to perform in that town and earn money to be able to keep going and buy more machines, animals, and so on to expand their train. Here you can see some of the very early concept art from our brainstorming phase. You can see we were experimenting with different settings. We had a submarine setting, we had a train in space, we had airships, but in the end we settled for the more familiar kind of far Wild West, Mad Max type setting. So once we had somewhat honed in on what our objective was, we started work on the physical prototype. This was effectively a fully fledged board game that we could play. The main difference from the real game was, of course, it couldn't be real time, it had to be turn-based. But apart from that, actually, all of the mechanics were reflected quite nicely. And we had 2 principal takeaway lessons we learned from playing this physical prototype. First of all, we initially wanted to have 4 wagons plus the locomotive, and that would make just a very long train that is just squished at the bottom of the screen. Because of the aspect ratio of screens, we would be wasting a lot of space on the screen. On top of that, starting with 4 wagons already gave the players far too much space. So we decided to limit ourselves to 2 wagons and exploit the vertical dimension a bit more. The second thing we learned was random events were very important to keep the game fun and interesting. If we didn't have any kind of randomness, then every time you played the game, it would be pretty much exactly the same, and the players would just find the optimal way to play, and after a while it would just get boring. So once we had played around with this, discussed a lot of the mechanics, it was time to get coding. We invested a lot of time in coding. All of our team, of course, pitched in, and some of us were working literally through the night, to the point where at one point I thought someone had maybe moved to Transylvania. Anyway, here you can see one of the early mock-ups of our train setup to start get an idea what it would look like. We wanted to make it a 2D platformer style game, but we soon realized we had a bit of a problem when it came to mobility. By restricting ourselves to 2 wagons, the game became very vertical because the wagons needed to be relatively tall. The issue with that in a platforming game was that it could become hard to navigate and move around easily, and that was a problem because movement is very important in our game. You can see here we were thinking of adding ladders in the middle of the train to allow the players to move up and down more easily. The problem with that is they would slow down the movement a lot, and we wanted to be very fast-paced, so it kind of didn't match very well. So instead, what we did was we removed the ladders, and we worked on making the movement a lot better. So we implemented a bit of smoke and mirrors, so to speak, to make the movement feel a lot better than it was in the beginning. So for instance, one thing is if a player is falling and presses the A button, the jump button, if they press it a little bit too soon, it'll still register as a jump. That allows a bit of leeway when trying to bounce off the ground. Similar thing when dropping off a ledge, the players can still jump even though they're technically in midair if it's close enough to a moment when they dropped off the ledge. This also helps a lot with making diagonal jumps up the train. Finally, we added a special type of movement, the dash. This is effectively a fast dash from one side to the next. And the crucial thing here is that gravity is temporarily disabled. What this does is it allows players to dash from one side to the other of the same wagon without needing to do awkward jumps. So with these improvements, movement started feeling a lot better, and we were pretty happy with the result. Meantime, Felix went wild with creating graphics for our game. He made tons of sprites, animations, and so on. And at the same time, Silvia was busy scouring the web for royalty-free audio, sound effects, and even making our own custom soundtrack, which she composed herself, which you heard already in the trailer, and you'll be able to hear in the gameplay. Now, the semester was nearing its end, and we started trying to get people to play the game. Of course, it was a bit harder due to the lockdown situation, but we were able to get quite a few people to try the game on their PC at home. And then, in order to replace the sort of face-to-face interview, we made a Google form to gather some feedback. And the main point of feedback we had was that people, effectively, people didn't notice the tutorial. The tutorial was, as you can see here, but a series of boxes at the bottom of the screen, which told you what you could do with the various items in the game. The issue with this is that because it's very fast paced, you focus mainly on your own character, what you're exactly doing. So most people really just didn't notice those boxes sitting there static. So instead, what we did, we moved the tutorial to a whole separate tutorial mode, which is a lot more guided and has animated step-by-step instructions to teach you the ropes of the game, which is very important because otherwise, if players don't know what to do, it's very frustrating, and especially in this type of game, it could be an unpleasant experience. So before we move on to seeing some gameplay, if you want to try our game, you can find it on itch.io. The link will also be sent in the chat on YouTube shortly. Without further ado, let's have a look at some gameplay provided by our fantastic teaching assistants. So it's a very hectic game, so forgive me if the commentary gets a little bit confused. First of all, we can see one player is feeding wood into the locomotive. This is very important to keep the train moving, because if the speed falls to 0, then you will lose. The second player, in the meantime, is setting up a nice tent in the top left by building performance podests and putting a giraffe there to perform during the show. Then the player is also grabbing some cloth to improve the tent itself. This will make it look better and earn us more money during the performance. So as the players go, we should be reaching the performance phase very soon. This means we're entering a settlement, and people will start giving us money for our performance. Here and there you can see dispersed also some random events, which is what I mentioned earlier, interferes with the players as they play. So here you can see the players performing. The players can perform themselves as well as have the animals perform in the circle. Once the animals are tired from performing, we need to feed them in order to be able to have them perform again. Once we reach the end of the performance phase, we can see the tents will be automatically deconstructed, and we've hopefully earned enough money at this point to start spending some. So over on the right, above the locomotive, you can see our little shop where players can buy items and machines. So a player just bought a bucket, which you can use in tandem with a well. A well doesn't make a lot of physical sense in a train, but this is Silly Gilly. It's not a physically accurate simulation game. So we can fill up our bucket with water, which has several purposes. First of all, it can help with resolving random events where machines are burning or damaged. Secondly, when animals are performing, they get tired, and giving them some water can help them perform a little bit longer. The bucket is one of the more versatile items in the game, so you can see we can also pick up fruit scraps from the feeding pen and throw them into the locomotive, which will also increase our range a little bit. So I believe at this stage we've shown a lot of different mechanics. If again you want to play the game yourself, you can pick it up for free on ETH.io, but that is all for me for the time being. Thank you for your attention.
Oh, thanks so much, Silly Gilly. We're going to move on to our last game of the evening, Monkeyed Up. Let's see the trailer. So please go ahead with your presentation.
So hello everyone, we are Team 5. Berger, Rudolf, Linus, and me in this course have developed the game Monkeyed Up. Before we introduce you our game, I'd like to take you back to the early stages of the development. Early on, basically all of us had different visions around the circus theme. Some of us wanted to make a fun multiplayer party game. There were ideas of making a platformer game or a horror game. So after a lot of discussion, we decided to incorporate the best aspects of each of these ideas into one single game. So therefore we came up with the idea of a multiplayer puzzle platformer game with a dark atmosphere aspect to it.
After deciding on the genre of our game, to elaborate on this atmospheric, horroristic element, we defined the backstory for our game. The animal circus is a popular and happy place for humans of all ages. Animals and their tamers put on a very great show every night, but not everything is as happy as it seems. The animals are abused, starved, and beaten. And on one night after the show, the two monkeys decide that they are not going to suffer anymore. They will leave the circus once and for all. This is where you, the player, steps in. You take control of the monkeys and help them to their freedom.
So I was responsible for the more mechanical aspects of the game. And for a platformer game, we obviously needed some kind of physics. Initially, I made each solid object an axis-aligned rectangle because that's easy to do. And then we added more types of objects, like a platform you can push and pull, or a key you pick up, also some kind of seesaw. And as it turned out, there were a lot of issues of some sort all the time. Weeks went by, and I realized that I was still fixing bugs from the time where we added our fourth or third object in. At that rate, we'd never have any kind of system with enough interactions that are both intuitive and fun. So what did we do? I stopped trying to reinvent the wheel and just looked for existing libraries. I included the Velcro physics engine, and it was pretty great. Previously, a bug usually meant that I had to sit down and rewrite an algorithm and hope it doesn't make another bug, but now it was usually just changing a few lines. This also allowed us to build our levels around realistic physics and not just some arbitrary game logic. For example, there's this scale mechanism, which you also saw in the trailer. This wouldn't have been possible earlier. And then next we work with the graphics.
Yes, so besides the physics system, the graphics system was the second main technical difficulty of the development. And yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the general development environment because our teams haven't spoken about that yet. All the games are created in Monogame, which is a very low-level game engine, and it provides features to render certain 3D objects with textures, but that's basically it. You can add a basic light, but yeah, it doesn't look really great, and we wanted to create an immersive atmosphere for our game. So we definitely needed to add shaders and post-processing to it. And we spent a lot of time creating those shaders, actually more than we expected to do. And here you see an intermediate result. It looks quite good. So post-processing wasn't added at that stage, but we had this cool volumetric light and also quite realistic shadows that were created at runtime. But there was a main problem with that. The FPS count dropped a lot, especially on Xbox. So it was clear that in order to improve the graphics system and make it suitable for playing, we needed to create a more sophisticated rendering engine. And I won't go into too much detail here, but yeah, for those who know a little bit about rendering, we use deferred rendering, which basically means that we render out a lot of different properties of our scene with different shaders. So you see like a color map, normal map, and the depth information, and actually a lot of more parameters, and combine those to our final result after adding a post-processing. And so I think we were able to create a quite good atmosphere for our game. And now we will switch to the demo, the last demo of the day, to Violin and Fraser. In our demo, we will show the first level and a sneak peek of our second level. There's also additionally a tutorial level, a small one, but we skip that for our demo. Yeah, so the level takes place behind the circus tent. The monkeys are in their cages, and they have to escape, and the only way to escape is through the circus tent. And so they look around. On the left you see a key on the top, and also that you can use a saw, but the guard was too quick and quickly catch the monkeys and put them back into the cages. Now we have to look around the scene, and if you look to the right, there is a seesaw. There's a saw. We can use it to maybe interact with the platform. You can't reach it just by jumping beneath it, so we have to find another way. Yeah, and there's this handy movable wagon that is quite physically... Okay, there's some physics bugs still. Yeah, that's the effect of presenting stuff. Okay, it got weird. I'm not that worried anymore. Okay, so they can put it next to the seesaw and use the seesaw to jump onto the movable wagon. So one monkey has to stand on one side, the other one on the other side, and so they have to make their way to the saw. They can't just go beneath the platform because the base is too small for that. Now where they have the saw, they can go to the left to the platform and actually get the key, but they have to keep an eye on the guard to not be caught again. Okay, now they have the key and just escape the guard. So they can go to the right where the lock is and the entrance to the circus tent.
So
Okay.
I'll take over for the second level. This is a level that takes place inside the tent. So we see the two monkeys climbing up some ramps. The goal in this level is to get the key that is located in a platform above the guards. To do that, they have to climb up the tent using these ramps. And in a moment you'll see that there is a Libra object attached to the top of the tent. They will need to be present in both ends of the Libra. So one monkey just got onto that. So now they are trying to, one monkey needs to get to the right side of the level. This needs to be done smartly in order to not be caught by the guards. So we see the two monkeys just running around and going around the level. So one of the monkeys actually used the guard to get to the right side, and they are climbing up that way. We will see in a moment that both monkeys are going to the Libra object. So the monkey on the right is trying to climb up, it seems.
Super, thank you. I think looks fantastic. I think it's time to actually let's give a huge round of applause to all of the teams for creating these 5 fantastic games. Wherever you are in the world, join me in clapping. Great job. For anyone who has created a game, creating a game at all is a huge challenge. Working with a team of people to do that is also extremely hard, but especially doing it on a schedule where you start on one day and you know in 3.5 months you have to be finished. Staying on the schedule is extremely difficult, so it's really an impressive feat. Fantastic job, really great. So now is the time when everyone watching can participate. Please join us in voting for the Audience Award. So the voting site, our voting poll is live, so you can visit the URL you see on the screen, or access it via the QR code that we're displaying and vote for your favorite team. So while you're voting, we're going to play the 5 trailers once more, back to back, just so you are reminded about each of the game. So choose wisely.
Uh-oh.
So I hope you enjoyed seeing those trailers again. We're going to be closing voting soon, so now's your chance. If you haven't voted, please do so. Right now, while we finish the voting period, I want to introduce Violin and Fraser, who are going to present some special achievements that the students have earned this semester. So Violin, Fraser, please take it away.
Thank you, Bob. I'm very excited to be living all of my Eurovision fantasies right now with this headset and cue cards. So we, along with Dominic, who's backstage, have been the teaching assistants for this year's Game Programming Lab, and we're really excited to present some achievements to our 5 amazing teams. So, first achievement is the most creative interpretation of this year's theme, which was, as we all know, the circus. And the achievement goes to Team 2, Media Circus. Claps. So all 5 teams took a really unique approach with the theme, but Team 2 had an idea that you wouldn't automatically associate with circus. So very well earned indeed. Next award, we have the funniest prototype. And the achievement goes to Team 3, Circus Break. So we were unable to play the physical prototypes this year due to social distancing, and that may be a silver lining because we would have fallen flat on our face if we had to do what Laura's expertly doing in this prototype here. They found a really unique way of showing the game mechanic of riding a unicycle while still maintaining the paper prototypes, so really great job. Next, we have the Best Reports achievement, and this goes to Team 5, Monkeyed Up. So all the teaching staff felt that these guys had the most consistently well-written reports throughout the semester, and we always enjoyed reading them, and really consistent and great job for Team 5. So, well done. Next, we have the heaviest repository in gigabytes award, and with a crowd, in-game crowd of thousands, I think it's maybe a clear winner, but let's see. Team 1, Circus Maximus, so well done. Next, we have the award for the self-professed vampires of the course. So these are very rare students who commit work between 9 and 5 a.m. So I think they already kind of introduced themselves in their own presentation, but let's see. It is Silly Gilly. Well done. So yes, you are indeed all vampires. And I should warn you, someone's coming to your apartment with a steak and some garlic, but just, it's fine, don't worry about it. So 16.77% of all commits made during those hours. And on the back of that, we have the opposite award, an even rarer specimen of student who commit mostly between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. And this goes to Team 3, Circus Break. Well done, Team 3. So this is even more amazing to me because I've never seen the world at this time. So it's between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. with 18.2% of all commits made during this time. And our last award, maybe the most, well, clearly the highest regarded, is the I Hate Mondays award. And this goes to the team with the least commits made on Mondays. And I suppose they were tired from being vampires because the award goes to Silly Gilly, Team 4. So that concludes all our achievements, and we'll hand back to Bob with the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Vila and Fraser. They were also the ones that were playing the games that you just saw. Now, we're going to close the voting momentarily. It's your very last chance. So 1 more minute, and then it's done. So if you haven't voted, vote now. Now, before we announce the audience award, we actually are giving out 2 awards this evening. We're also awarding a jury award. Now, the audience award is being chosen by your votes, but the jury award is different. And can I just move to the next slide? Actually, we're very fortunate to have the support of a AAA game studio called Studio Gobo, located in Brighton, England. They make fantastic games. You should look them up. Their games are really good. I've met many of the people there. and I'm humbled every time because they're so strong and so talented at what they do. So Gobo kindly offered to playtest the games and also choose the jury award winner. So each of the games was played by 5 or 6 expert game designers and game developers at their studio. Nick Grover kindly organized the playtesting session. And here are a few photos from different Gobo members playing the games. This, of course, happened at their homes because of the lockdown. You can see some family members were also recruited to play alongside the adults, which I think is fantastic as well. But at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Nick, who has joined us also from Brighton, to tell us a little bit about his impression from playing the games and also announce the jury award winner. So we're, Nick, please go ahead.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks for inviting me along to the presentation. As Bob said, I'm from Studio Gobo. We're a game studio in the UK with a long association with ETH. It's been our pleasure to spend some time looking at the games the students have produced so that we can give some feedback from within the industry, but also because we've had the honour, as Bob said, of selecting this year's jury winner. So to do this, last week I got together a team of about 15 people at Gobo to look at the students' games from the vantage point of their accumulated experience and to share their feedback. I think we've got a few of them watching the stream at the moment as well, which is good. Our play testers were from all disciplines within the studio. We've got artists, engineers, designers, testers, producers, and they all contributed their thoughts afterwards so we could give the students feedback covering what we loved about the games, but also, at Bob's suggestion, where we thought they could benefit from developing them further should they ever want to take the games to commercial release. This is actually a process we go through within the studio all the time as we develop different parts of the projects we're working on. People building a feature will develop a working prototype that will then be play tested by a wider group within the team. And afterwards, we'll sit together and talk about what we really liked about it and what we think needs improvement. And we do this because we understand that the best games are made by collaborative effort, wide-ranging feedback and constant iteration. And this is what you have here, 5 groups of talented students collaborating and iterating. By completing this project and this course, you've all taken an important step towards preparing yourselves for careers in the games industry, so well done. And also, it's a shameless plug, but I'll get in trouble with our recruitment team if I don't say that if you're ever interested in relocating to the south coast of the UK, make sure you check out studiogobo.com, see if there's any roles that might interest you. Now, I sent our feedback to Bob over the weekend. I believe he's already shared it with the teams. I hope it all makes sense. What Bob's asked me to do today is just give a very brief overview of what we thought about the games for the benefit of everybody else watching on the stream. So starting with Team 1, Circus Maximus, the presentation on this game was great. And there were lots of nice touches to the gameplay. Something else that stood out was that it seemed really well researched as well. This was gladiatorial combat with a wide variety of different characters you can select, all very distinct from each other. However, having these very playable characters with different ability sets highlights how important and how difficult balancing is. You want to make sure that selecting a particular character class isn't a guarantee of victory, otherwise everyone will choose the same. So balancing requires a lot of playtesting and careful thought, but if you can nail that, then that would take this game absolutely to the next level. So Team 2 was Media Circus. And this was a really interesting idea, as I think was reflected in the awards announced just now, and a very clever interpretation of the circus brief given to the teams. We liked how it tapped into the modern concept of sensationalism in news reporting. There were other nice touches as well, like restricting which reporters can be sent to which locations based on how much cash you've got at your disposal. We just wanted to see some clearer objectives and a bit more variation and consequence to the players' choices. But this is the foundation of being something a bit different and very in tune with current society, and a great achievement considering the problems you had within your team. Team 3 was Circus Break. It's had a really clever control mechanic, as you've seen, that sets it apart from other games and that has big potential. Trying to maintain the player's balance on the unicycle is hugely challenging, and especially at first, it's very difficult to control your character at all. So for us, the level that they built for you to navigate is perhaps a little too difficult and felt more like a later level in the game. For once you familiarized yourself with the controls and other easier levels. That said, there's a market for games with unusual and complicated control mechanics where the entertainment comes from yours or other people's spectacular failure to master those controls. But equally, that could be a bit off-putting to a lot of more casual players. So the team would need to think carefully about what they want people's reaction to be to the game and potentially find ways to ease them into the control system a little more gradually. Team 4 was Silly Gilly. And at its core, it's a system loops management game wrapped up in a quirky and well-executed cartoony visual style. We thought this game had a lot of polish and bags of personality. It felt like a lot of thought had gone into the art direction and sound design. It'd be relatively simple to make the gameplay even more frenetic, and in order to fulfill its 4-player party game potential, it would be great to see more going on at once with larger trains and perhaps a reinvestigation of adding more carriages, especially once you've utilized the vertical space. But the relative simplicity of the actual gameplay is also one of its strengths, making it accessible to a wide range of players. As an example, I was able to play it with my 6-year-old son. And Team 5 was monkeyed up, obviously. We loved that this game had same-screen co-op gameplay. The notion of animals escaping the circus oppressors is very now as well. We're all rooting for the monkeys to escape. Alongside some polish on the camera and a unifying of the art style, we just want to see more and more cooperative puzzles to solve, finding ways to get the players to constantly work together to overcome their problems, something you're already well on your way to doing. If you keep this in mind but when you're building out into a larger experience, there are plenty of people out there who are longing for couch co-op games to play with friends that are in the same room as them rather than online. Well, maybe not at the moment, but once we get past all the COVID-19 stuff, they will again. All 5 of the games were great achievements by their respective teams, and everyone should be really proud of what they've done. And despite how good the games were and all the effort that the students put into them, as Bob said, we were also asked to pick our overall favorite. So as well as providing feedback, I asked all the playtesters to score the games that they looked at, and while it was close, it's my pleasure to announce that Gobo's Game of the Year is Silly Gilly. There were lots of lovely little touches that suggested a lot of work had gone into polishing this game, from the animations on the player select screen to the distinct art style, not to mention the fun gameplay and great cartoony characterizations. It's actually quite addictive, and one of the pieces of feedback from one of my colleagues was that she ended up playing it for a really long time out of pure joy. Now, if you can elicit that kind of emotion in somebody with a game, then you're onto a winner. So, well done to the team behind Silly Gilly, but also congratulations to all 5 teams for what you've achieved with your projects in a relatively short period of time. And on behalf of Studio Gobo, good luck to all of you with the next chapters of your careers. Thanks, Bob.
So, yes, Nick, thank you so much for those eloquent words. Really, really fantastic. Really well said. I'm speechless. You really I appreciate how well you summarize the games, and really fantastic. So, moving on, we have one more duty tonight, and that is to announce the audience award. Actually, the voting has been closed. The results are in. It was extremely close, and without further ado, the audience award goes to Team 1, Circus Maximus. Congratulations. So, you know, the awards are fun. I think they give a little competition. They give motivation to work really hard. But in fact, as I said, creating the game at all is a fantastic achievement. So everyone really is a winner. I'm very proud of everything that you all have done in the course. So I want to give a really heartfelt thank you from me personally for all the hard work you did. I think you make us, the Game Technology Center, look good. You make ETH look good, and you really prove that there's a role for games and game technology in science and education. So huge thank you to each and every one of the students for what you've contributed. Also, obviously, a big thank you to Studio Gobo, to Nick and the other playtesters for their support. That's a fantastic opportunity to have. We also have a lot of support from the Zurich University of the Arts. We had a guest lecture from Renee Bauer, and even some years we're able to bring some of the students from the art school into our course as well, which is a fantastic opportunity. So this course is really a partnership with him. But the game scene in Zurich and Switzerland is small, but with a really fantastic community. And I want to also give some call outs to the Ludicious Zurich Game Festival, fantastic game festival that's coming up this summer. SGDA, the Swiss Game Developers Association, Swiss Games, which is a program run by Pro Helvetia, the Swiss Arts Council. So altogether, these groups are supporting the vibrant, exciting game development scene in Zurich. And speaking on behalf of ETH, of the Game Technology Center, we're very happy to be a part of that community. I want to give a huge thank you to the team organizing. So Violin and Fraser, you saw, they were playing the games, TAs. Dominic has been, also a TA, has been manning the live chat on the stream. Fabio Zund is the mastermind behind our technology setup, which is almost like he's transformed his apartment into a TV studio here, which is a really great feat. And I think not only pulling off this live event this evening, but just the whole course, being able to run this course while respecting the social distancing rules has been a challenge, and everyone involved deserves a round of applause for what they've done. So big thank you. So with that, we're ready to close. Thanks so much for your attention, and we'll see you next year.